Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm breaking up our section 3.1 into two sections, least common denominator, and then in the next video we're going to use least common denominators to go ahead and add together fractions. But finding and using these LCDs are a very, very important skill, and it bears some individual attention. So let's talk about a least common denominator. So if we've got two fractions, say we've got 2/3 and 1/2. In order to add two fractions, we need to have a common denominator. The bottoms would have to be the same. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to convert to equivalence. In order to add. Now, a common denominator is going to be something that is a common multiple of all denominators. So, in this case, we're just looking for some common multiple of both 2 and 3. And that's pretty easy to find. That's actually, in fact, going to be 6. So I'd make these into some common multiple with 6 as a denominator. And what I would do in order to find these equivalent fractions is I would just multiply this by what we call a well-chosen 1. So this would be multiplied by 3 over 3. 1 times 3 would be 3. 2 times 3 is 6. That 2/3, I would need to multiply this by 2 over 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. That gives us a basis to add together our two fractions. And then 4/6 plus 3/6 is going to end up being 7/6. I would be done here. But let's talk more in depth about what process can we use in order to find that common multiple. So finding an LCD, we've got two different methods. And let's talk about my favorite method of finding a common denominator. What we're going to do is we're going to look at multiples of both of our denominators. So, say we've got two numbers like 6 and 15. What I'm going to do is I'm going to list all of my multiples of 6 and 15. So let's list our multiples. So when I start listing multiples of 15, I'm going to start with 15. 2 times 15 is going to be 30. 3 times 15 is 45. 4 times 15 is going to be 60. Oh, hey, 60 I can see is a multiple of 6. 75, and so on. Multiples of 6, I would have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, and so on. What we're looking for is we're looking for any number that's in common on both of these lists. And I see that 30 is uncommon in both of these lists. And I already said that 60 is yet another one. If I were to have continued this, I would have had 90 as well. But this smallest term on both of these lists is our least or lowest common denominator, or sometimes you'll hear it as the least common multiple. Doing it this way, it also tells us how many steps we need to take. Here, I needed to say, oh, that's, in order to get to 30, this is 15 times 2. It's the second term in the list. To get to that 30, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 times 5 is 30. That's going to give us some useful information. But right now we're just looking for those LCDs. Let's do that again. So again, we're just going to list common multiples, or we're just going to list multiples of our numbers in order to find a common multiple. So let's take something like 4 and 20. And just listing this out, you might be able to spot right off the bat 20 is already a multiple of 4, because hey, 20, 40, 60, 80, and if you're looking at this, you can start to see that everything out here is already a multiple of 4. I would have to go a little ways before I got to 20, but yeah, 20 is a multiple of 4, so is 40, so is 60, so is 80. But I'd have to say, oh, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. But that 20 is already a multiple. So if I had two fractions that I were adding together, say something like 3/4 plus 1/20, that 20th wouldn't need to change at all. It would only be that 4th, and I would multiply this by, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would multiply that by 5 over 5. That would make this 15 20ths plus my 1/20th to get 16 20ths. Okay. Let's discuss our second method of finding a common denominator. And this one is a little less intuitive, but it definitely bears some examination. Method 2 is we're going to do a factorization, factor the numbers, and then we're going to figure out what factors would need to be in a common denominator. Find all of our unique factors. So let's take something like 10 and 15. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a factorization of these things. Well, what happens, 10 happens to be 2 times 5. 15 happens to be 3 times 5. What I'm going to do for our LCD is I'm going to take all of our unique factors. I have 2, a 3, and a 5 here. 2, 3, and even though 5 is listed twice, it's common to both terms, so I only need to have it on here once. 2 times 3 times 5 is going to be 30. That's our common denominator, or that's our common multiple of both 10 and 15. Hey, that works. Let's see what happens when I have something a little bit more complicated. Say something like 12 and 18. 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. 18 is 2 times 3 times 3. Now, notice that we've got some common factors already. I don't need to repeat that common factor, but the fact that I've got this extra 2 here means I'll need to list it for our LCD. This is going to be 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, or 4 times 9 is going to be 36. So with this, we factored, and then we basically found all of our unique factors here. We have, we needed, in order to be a common multiple, it would need to have at least 2 2's in here. In order to be a common factor, or a common multiple, it would need to have both 3's in here. So 36 is our LCD. All right, I think that's where I'm going to stop. Let us know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video.